Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about how to rationalize a denominator. So let's go ahead and get started. So what do I mean when I say we want to rationalize the denominator? First, let's start with the very basics with fractions. So here, in this fraction, we have two parts. We have this, and then we have this. If you can remember, what is this bottom part called? That's called the denominator. And this top part is called the numerator. Okay, so here, this is just a normal fraction with this 1 as a numerator, and the bottom, the 2 as the denominator. However, we can also have a little bit more complex, a little bit more difficult fractions. So let me give you an example. So let's say we have this. What is that? Remember, we talked about what square root. So this is a square root here. That's a square root of 2. So the square root of 2 is actually an irrational number. And 1 is a rational number. So in a fraction, we usually, to make it in simplest terms, we always want it to be a rational number. So that means that we want to change root 2, square root 2, to something else. So I'll say again, so this was irrational. Okay, so how can we get that out of that irrational form? So we can get that out by what I had said before, by rationalizing the denominator. So how do we do that? Let's go ahead and get into that. So to rationalize the denominator, all we have to do is we just have to multiply both top and bottom by whatever here. So here we had square root 2, so that's what we're doing right there. So you might be saying, why do we do that? So we'll find out in a second, but another question you might ask is this legal? Are we allowed to do that? And the answer is yes, we are, because this root 2 over root 2, that's just another way to represent 1. Root 2 divided by root 2 is equal to 1. So that means it is legal. So now let's go ahead and simplify this. So what is 1 times, so let's do this. So 1 times root 2 over root 2 times root 2. So 1 times root 2 is root 2, and root 2 times root 2 is equal to root 4, which is equal to 2. So root 2 over 2. And that's rationalizing the denominator. So now the denominator has only rational numbers. It doesn't have any more irrational numbers. So we have rationalized the denominator here. Okay, so now let's get into a little bit more. Before we do that though, let's do a little bit of a little practice. Let's go ahead and rationalize this. Sorry, but that's 2 over root 3. So if you want to take a second to pause this and do that, go ahead and do that, but we'll work on it together. Okay, so here, the thing we want to rationalize is this square root 3. So that means let's multiply everything by square root of 3. So remember, this is legal because square root 3 over square root 3 is equal to 1. So we know 2 times root 3, we'll just write that as 2 root 3 over root 3 times root 3 is equal to root 9, which is equal to 3. Just to let you guys know, just a little tip, whenever you have a square root and you multiply it by itself, the square root just goes away, so it would just be 3. So here, we have 2 root 3 over 3. And that's the rationalized denominator. Now we don't have any square root, we just have a rational number and only that square root in the numerator now. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and let's go to the next part, which is multiplying by the conjugate. So there's another special way we can move a square root from the bottom of a fraction to the top. We multiply the top and bottom by what is called the conjugate. So let me go ahead and here, let's the conjugate. That's how you spell it if you want to. Okay, so let's see. So we have this. This is a regular old expression. So this is the original expression, but the conjugate is just basically just flipping that sign in the middle of the term. So right there, the sign right there is plus, so the conjugate of that would be x minus 4. So, oops, sorry about that. So that would be the conjugate of that. So let's try that again. So we have that. So what would the conjugate be? So let's see the sign here. Sign is positive, meaning the sign of the conjugate would be x squared minus 5. So this is, again, this is a conjugate. Whoops. There's a conjugate, and this is the regular expression. Okay, so that's going to come handy when we do this next part. So before we get started with how we're going to be rationalizing, let's just quickly see if we multiply the conjugate by each other. So I'll put this a plus b times a minus b. If we multiply this out, if we FOIL it out, this is going to be equal to a squared minus b squared. That means that the first term squared minus the second term squared, that's what the conjugate times itself is going to be. So that'll be useful to know as we go on. Okay, so now let's work with the conjugate, how we can use that to rationalize the denominator. So let's say we have 1 over 2 plus root 2. So let's go ahead. So what are we going to find the conjugate of? We would want to find the conjugate of this, the 2 plus root 2. So what's a conjugate of 2 plus root 2? Remember, just changing the sign. So that would be 2 minus root 2. So let's go ahead and use that now. So same thing here. We're going to be multiplying both the top and bottom by that. Root 2 minus root 2, 2 minus root 2. So what's 1 times 2 minus root 2? That would be equal to 2 minus root 2 over, remember, what did we say here? Right here, the a squared minus b squared. So a is 2, so it's 2 squared minus root 2 squared. So that would be equal to 4 minus 2. So we got 2 minus root 2 over 2. So we can keep it in that form just so it's easier. But yeah, that would be how we would do that. So let's do one more problem with this before we wrap up for today. Okay, so go ahead. If you want to pause and try this out by yourself, go ahead and try to do that. Try to rationalize this. Remember, we want to find the conjugate of this. So what's a conjugate of 3 plus root 5? The sign would be plus, so it's going to be 3 minus root 5. So let's multiply both the top and the bottom by 3 minus root 5. So 2 times 3 minus root 5 over, that's, remember, a squared minus b squared. So a squared, that's 3 squared. 3 squared is 9 minus root 5 squared. Root 5 squared is root 5 times root 5, which is root 25, which is equal to 5. Oops, sorry, let me rewrite that. 9 minus 5. Sorry about that, I can't write a good 5. Okay, so then we have here. So we have 2 times, so let's go ahead and distribute that out. So we have, actually, let's keep it in that form, because that's going to be, so 2 times root 3 over 4. And I kept that in form, so I can just cancel that out, leaving 3 minus root 5 over 2. And that is our final expression after rationalizing the denominator. So this is going to really be useful to us as we go on rationalizing the denominator. We're going to be working a lot with fractions and such. So this is really going to be helpful. But yeah, that's all for today's video. So thank you, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.